welcome everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I'm a conceptual material designer, and I'll explain a little bit about what it means in other slide. But just as a small introduction, I see materials as narrative carrying mediums. So that's basically the underline of what I do. And today, of course, I will talk to you about materials as time capsules. So yeah, I'm the founder of my own studios. And basically, at the moment, I'm a one-woman show. Since I graduated the Design Academy in Eindhoven in 2017. And since then, well, partially, I would give it a bit of luck, partially being in the right place in the right time, but also with modesty, also talent. So basically the studio right after my graduation kind of had to become, because I got a lot of media attention for my graduation project, which I will tell you today about it. And since I graduated, it kind of exploded. The first year was really crazy. I also I was invited for a residency in the Technical University of Delft, and I was nominated for Beazley Design of the Year award, like on the same year I graduated, which was kind of overwhelming for a young designer. But I always say that I'm really thankful for my luck as well. So with a little bit of luck and a little bit of talent, everybody can succeed, I guess. Last year, I won the Emerging Designer of the Year of Design. I was named one of the most influential creatives of Icon magazine. And I also won last year the EcoCoin Award, which is giving for people who are innovators in technology and ecology. It's an international award, which is given through the Next Nature Network, for who of you that know them. So yeah, I work with all kinds of clients. It comes from companies like Balenciaga, a fashion company, but I also work on projects which are more research. This year I'm working on a project with the Tropen Museum in the Netherlands. So it's a museum that is specializing in anthropology and material cultures. And I'm doing a new commission for them for an exhibition that will open in October 2022. So it's a research which I cannot tell about yet, but it is a material research, and the geopolitics of the material as well. I'm still in the process already for a year. I'm doing a work with the Textile Museum in the Netherlands. I'm developing a tapestry series made from collagen and milk based yarns. And I'm developing my own dyes for it, natural dyes for it. That will also launch hopefully in April. Yeah, and I created an installation for Design Miami Basel, etc., etc. So enough about me. So what is conceptual material design? Sorry. So basically what I say is the story or the research is the product, and I use the material to tell that story. So it's not about creating necessarily, if I create a vase, it's not necessarily because I wanted to design a vase. It's because the vase is the best medium to tell the narrative. I'm heavily associating my work to philosophy as well, and eco-philosophy. I work in different realms, but the main one is discursive design. Everybody know discursive design, I assume? Question? Yeah, so discursive design is basically the objective of it. So the use of it is to create a discussion. So it can be a chair, it can be useful as an object, but as a designer, I want to tell a story through my object. Biodesign, critical design, and speculative design, they're all interconnected, basically. So I say a conceptual material designer, but it's kind of an over term that I invented because the concept is first and the material second. I'm not a material designer. So for me, really, I'm just using the material to tell the concept. If you have questions, by the way, we're like in a living room situation, so you can just raise your hand. So I developed this kind of methodology for myself. So basically, I look at materials in the different scales of which they interact with. If it's come from the senses or for the human use, the way they're fitting into our culture, the way they interact with nature, but also the more chemical composition, how they're becoming, how do we extract them, how they transform, if they biodegrade, if they're being metabolized, etc. But what I noticed is that there's also the angle of time, the medium of time within it. So also I always investigate how it was in the past, if it's from craftsmanship, ancient interactions, or even just how it came to be part of Earth. For example, gold comes from the stars. Basically, we're all coming from the stars if we go far enough. The present, how are we tackling it today? Is it a problem of our time? Like, for example, plastic. I work a lot about the subject of plastic and its interaction, and how it will be in the future. So how our nature will take it to itself, less of how we're gonna do new things with it. That's not really what is interesting for me, but it's more like how it will interact with the surrounding. So I'm not necessarily building the houses of the future or finding a material to build the house of the future, but I'm interested in how the material is changing within nature. You had a question? Oh, sorry. Yeah, no worries. Yeah. So what is time capsulating materials? So I distinct two types. Of course, during this research, I'm sure there will come more. So there is, of course, the natural one. So it's materials that they record time. For example, tree rings that they symbolize the age of the tree, minerals, sediments, entropy of materials like rust, etc. But the more interesting for me are the unintentional one or the artificial one. So, for example, when you have a buildup of a material, is it because of human actions? Is it because we're trashing it? Is it landfills because it buries in a certain environment? How we move materials between places, so the geopolitics of materials as well. Yeah, so I'm going to give you a few examples of the materials I'm focusing on my research. So one of them is one of the most, I think it's the first one I would call a time capsule. I found it in the Natural History Museum in London, and it's an amazing thing. It's a stone. It's a buildup of sulfate in the water pipes in coal mines. So it's symbolizing basically how coal miners were treated. So each black line, it symbolizes a shift of the miners and the work that they did and the buildup it had. So the dust of the coal was settling. And every time you have a white line, it means that they had a day off. It's insane. So in one of the articles about this stone, they even said that one of those thick lines, it's a day that they took off to have a cockfight. And some of them are like basically that Christmas was on a Monday. So this is really how time is being embedded in a material, but also the conditions of humans. So basically the horrible conditions that coal miners had to endure. So nowadays we don't have it because there's sufficient filtering, there's better work environment, they have better cleaning methods, etc. So it's kind of a material that stays in the past. Another one which is more like time specific. So other ones maybe they build up through time, but this one is very, very time specific. It's called Trinitite. It's based on the Trinity bomb. So it was the first atom bomb experiment. And basically the heat created glass in the sand, but it's atomic glass. So you can still find it and it still radiates. So it will, some researchers say that our radiation from our atomic materials, from our technology, it will stay in the ground as well. For example, in Chernobyl, it will stay for thousands of years radiating. Another one that I specifically, I really like it. I was actually trying to get one, but I didn't get one yet. So it's a Leland blue, and it's a waste material. So Leland, it's a place, it's a city in Michigan, and it's sitting on a lake. And there used to be a very big iron industry there. And the waste material from smelting of iron, it's called slag, and the slag was thrown into the water. So because of the interaction of the water with the slag, so it basically became this kind of bluish green material. But the interesting thing about it is that when they stopped doing it, it wasn't worth for them anymore to be for this company, the Superior Iron Company, to be working there. So they moved away. But nowadays, this material becomes really part of the culture and a way of living for the people in that city, because they're using it. Also, they're hunting it and they're collecting it, and it's representing their cultural history. They're representing their city. They do art and crafts with it. So it's not only containing the industrial history of the place, but it's also containing what is happening now with it. Yeah. Another one which I really like, Fordite. It's one of the most beautiful materials, but it's also very similar to Leland blue in a way, because it's a waste that was dumped, and then the technology is not used anymore. And now it became like a craftsmanship material. So almost like everybody's using it for jewelries. It's like really, it can be very expensive. Like this piece, for example, I think it costs something like $1,000. And basically what happened is that there used to be a way to color cars in factory. It's called Fordite after Ford. And at some point, and basically what they did, like you can read it as well, but what they did is that it was kind of a mile. So it was kind of a coating. You coat the car, you put it in an oven, you take it out, you put another layer, you take it out, thousands and thousands of time. And the material is melting on the rails of the oven. And then somebody in the factory found out, whoa, this material is really beautiful. Like there's something into it, and they start collecting it. And now it's very rare to find it, because this is not the technology that's been used in cars anymore. Yeah, and it became a whole business, a whole culture of people like, oh, do you have an original Fordite? Is it from Ford, or is it from a Mercedes factory, or where is it coming from? And specifically what I like about it, that they recorded the color trends of cars as well. So you can really see back in the 40s, like what was the color trends for cars. The newest one, now we're in the thousands, the year of 2021. It's plastic agglomerate, and it's even got the name, the newest kind of rock forming on the face of the earth. People are assuming it will be the marker of our time in geology. And it's basically, it was first found in Hawaii, in Camilo Beach, which is an area that gets a lot of plastic pollution from the water. So the sand is very mixed with microplastics. And initially, the researchers who found it, it was an artist, a researcher, and an activist. And they formed this group, and they came there to investigate it. And they found out, they thought, oh, we're in Hawaii, there's a lot of volcanic action going on, so probably it's happening naturally. But they found out that in this case, it was because people were just burning trash on the beach, or doing like campfires, because that's also tradition in Hawaii to do fires on the beach as part of ritual. So basically the plastic becomes kind of a conglomerate. So a conglomerate is that you have one thing that it glues other things to it. And that's for me, that's one of the biggest symbols of plastic agglomerate, because it's now happening and it will be fordyed for us in the future, or Leland blue, for example. So for me, it was really an inspiration. And when I started to do my graduation project, basically I started my graduation project a year before, because we had an assignment, and the theme of the assignment was follies. Does anybody here know follies?
Like the symbols.
Yeah, the buildings with no purpose.
Yeah.
So that was our theme. And I found out about this scholar stones. So scholar stones are basically, you have different name for it in Asian cultures, but it's basically a rock, a miniature version of the rocks you have in Zen gardens. And it's appreciated for resembling an animal or a mountain, but also like the way nature changed it and kind of sculptured it. So the idea was that a scholar will have their ink, will have their scrolls, and they'll have a little scholar stone with them. And that stone helps them to meditate about the change of nature. So they appreciate nature. So it's a reminder of how nature keeps changing and life keeps changing. And for me, that was kind of my interaction from a folly to that one. So my project was called Metamorphism, and it's an ongoing project. I'm still very busy with it. I'm working within it in chapters. So every new object that I create out of it is kind of a new chapter. So as I said, it symbolizes the story. So the object, the material, symbolizes this story of that chapter. And it's very interesting for me also as a designer, what happens when you have like this really you're very known for a certain material or for a certain subject. And then what happens when you're kind of being not forced, but kind of going with the flow to keep investigating it? How do you still keep it interesting for you after 4 years? And so that's why I work in chapters, because every time I find a different philosophical view on it or a different type of angle I can go. So basically what I did, so my graduation project, Metamorphism, it's a term from geology. And it's basically a term that tells how rocks transform through heat and pressure. So for example, limestone becomes marble because of certain type of heat and the pressure that caused because of the layer it's in. So you have organic material like dead animals, they become limestone, limestone become marble. So this transformation. And then when you have that heat and pressure, materials are becoming kind of like plastic. So they're becoming fluid, they're becoming gooey, and they're changed in a chemical way. So for me, that was, wow, this is really the symbolism of plastic as well. Plastic is transformation. And if we go far enough, plastic also was organic materials that transformed. So I was looking at the future of this material. So I took the plastic agglomerate and what would happen to it within this metamorphism process, basically, how it will become the marker of our time, what the people, or not people, I don't know, in thousands of years, in millions of years, when they'll find this material, what will they think about us? What will they think about this material? Because it's a material that probably won't exist in its pure form anymore. It will become, because plastic agglomerate is already by itself, it's a hybrid material. So what happens when it goes through metabolistic processes of the earth? Is it, for example, as we find now, crystals or gemstones or marble, and we go and we mine them and we appreciate them for their beauty, or for the processes that are embedded in them, like the Sunday stone, for example. So it became kind of like the byproduct of this research became a material called lithoplast. So this material that the vase is made of. And by itself, it's a very interesting material also on the philosophical level, because when we melt plastic nowadays, you have a lot of projects like Precious Plastic and people that recycling plastic in their homes. And I thought it's a very interesting development into craftsmanship also, is using this material for craftsmanship, because we know plastic is a very industrial object, very always the same, very clean. All the little extra seams are being taken off. And the moment I present it as a very rough material, it's kind of like a mindfuck in a way to people. And I worked with it almost as a craftsmanship. So I actually, why did I create those vessels? Why did I create those vases? Because I'm kind of trying to do parallelism to clay, to the way we worked with clay. We took the material from the ground, we worked with the earth around us, and we shaped it. And now we're taking this material and we're shaping it to our needs. So again, the story is very important and the material is the medium.